Hey everyone, welcome back. So today's topic is one of the most useful features in C programming, which is structures. Now we'll start with the basics of structures, learn how to create and use them, and then move on to using structures with functions. And finally, we will look at what a structure pointers. So if you're ready, let's dive right in. Now in C, a structure is a user-defined data type that allows us to group different types of variables together. So in simple words, a structure is a data type which is a collection of one or more variables. Now these variables can be of different types and they are grouped together under a single name. Now this helps us to organize complicated data, particularly in larger programs, because they permit a group of related variables to be treated as a unit instead of separate entities. Now, for example, let's say that we are creating a program to manage the data of different students. Now, in this case, we would want to store the information of a student such as the student's name, the student's age, or the grade of a student. Now, what I can do is I can create a structure of these three variables, which will treat this as a single unit, which is called as a structure. And then I can create separate variables for each student which will store the name, the age and the grade of each and every student. Okay, so although this is a bit confusing to understand theoretically, we will try to understand this with the help of practical examples. So before we do that, let us try to understand how we can define a structure in C. Now the syntax to define a structure in C is quite simple. First, we will use the struct keyword, struct, followed by the name which we will give, that is the identifier or the identity. Okay, we will give the structure a name or an identity. Then inside two curly braces, we will specify the elements or the data a structure will store. So these can be different types of variables. Okay, we will have the data type followed by the variable name. So we can have n number of variables inside the structure and they can be of different types. And one key point to remember here is that these variables of a structure are called as members of a structure or structure members. And another key point to remember here is that a structure should always terminate or end with a semicolon. Otherwise, my compiler will give me an error. Don't forget to add a semicolon at the end. So these are the three key points to remember when defining a structure. Now let us see this with the help of an example. So what I have done here is that I will create a structure. First, I will use the struct keyword. Then I will give my structure a name, that is student, which will store the data of a particular student. Inside this, I will define the variables or member of a structure. So first I will define a character array, which is a string that will store the name of a student, then the age of a student, which is an integer value, and then the grade of a student. So here I have created a structure of type student, but we are forgetting one thing here, which is the semicolon at the end. So as you can see, this is how we can declare a structure. So here what I have done is I have created a structure and I've given it the name student. And inside the structure, I have three members: the name of the student, the age of the student, and the grade of a student. Now by grouping them together in a structure, we can work with all these three values as a single unit. Now let us see how we can do that. And in order to do that, we need to understand how we can declare and access the members of a structure. Now the syntax to declare a variable of a structure is very simple. First, we will use the struct keyword. Then we will use the name of the structure, which is student in this case. And then we will declare a variable. Let's say there are n number of students in my class. So starting from student number 1, let's say I give it the name std1. Then I can give it std2. And I can define n number of variables for my structure depending upon the number of students I want to store the data for. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how we can declare a structure. So first what I will do is I will declare it in the main function. So how do we declare? It is very simple. First, we will use the struct keyword, then the name. This is basically the data type which I will be giving my variable. So here, this is the data type which I will be giving my variable, and then I will give my variable a name. Let's say student1. Similarly, I can define n number of students. So I can create another variable of this structure and call it student2. Now let us fill in the values for the data of this structure or these variables. So let's say the name, we want to give the student1 a name. So I will say I will use the string copy function for this. Okay, student1 dot name, and I'll give it the name uh, Alice. Okay, and similarly I will give my other student also a name, student2 dot name, and I will give it a John. Now you all might be wondering, why am I using this dot symbol here? Now, when we are working with structures, one key point to remember here is that to access the member of any structure or to modify the member of any structure, we use the dot operator. Therefore, in order to access or modify any member of a structure, keep in mind that we should use the dot operator to perform the operation. Okay. Similarly, to store the age of the student, let's say student1, I will use the dot operator. Dot age is equal to 20, and student2 dot age, the dot operator, is equal to, let's say, 21. And similarly, we will store the grade of the student. Student1 dot grade is equal to, let's say, 88.5%, and student2 grade is equal to 90%. Okay, now let's go ahead and print these values. Okay, so let's see how we can print these values. Let's say I want to print the name of the first student. So name of student1 is %s, and here how I will access the value using the dot operator, student1 dot name. Okay, so what I have done is, here I have modified the data members of a structure, and here what I am doing is I am accessing the members of a structure. Let's print the name of student2. Okay, and similarly what we can do is we can print the age. So here I will just print the age of student2. Okay, the age of student2 is %d, and let's print the grade of student1. Okay, so using the dot operator, we can access and modify the members of a structure. So let's go ahead and compile it. Okay, so as you can see, this is how I can create, modify, and I can access the members of a structure. Now, let us see how we can pass structures to functions. That is, how structures and functions work together. Okay, so now since we know how to create and use a structure, let us see how to pass a structure to a function. Now, this is useful when you want to perform operations on a structured data, like displaying or modifying the information. We can also pass a structure by value, which basically sends a copy to the function, or we can pass it by using a pointer, which basically sends the original data. We will see both ways. We will see how structures work with pointers and how we can pass a structure that is a copy to a function that is call by value and call by reference, which we have learned before. The same thing works with structure variables. So what I will do here is, rather than printing these values, I will define a function that will do this work. So let's define a function. Let's declare a function here. Let's say void display student info. So this function will display the information of a student. Okay. So what will this function do is, it will take the argument, the structure as an argument. Okay. We will pass the structure as an argument. So we will have to give the parameter also as a structure. Okay. We have to specify the parameter as a structure. So struct student, and this is the variable. Okay. We have learned about how we pass values to a function. So in the same way how we pass variables to a function, we can also pass structure variables to a function. Okay. And here what I will do is, I will print the value. So I will say name %s \n, and here I will print the name s dot name. That is the name of the structure and the member. Okay. And then the age %d \n s dot age. That is the variable and the member. Okay, the structure variable and its member. Similarly, I will print the grade percentage or 2f format specifier. Okay, and s dot grade. So let's go ahead and let's call this function for both the students. So I will say display student info, and here I will pass the variable for the first student. Okay. Similarly, what I can do is, I can call this function for the second student. I will pass the variable, that is the structure variable of the second student. Let's go ahead, compile and run this. So as you can see, name Alice, age 20, grade 88.50, name John, age 21, grade 90.01. So this is how we can use structures with functions. So what I did in this code is, the function here, which is display student info, takes the student structure as a parameter, and it prints each member of that structure. Okay, we pass student 1 by value. That is, here what did we do is, we passed a copy of that structure to the function. Okay, so one thing to remember is that whenever we are passing by value, any changes which are made inside this function won't affect the original structure. In order to do that, I will have to pass a pointer to that structure. So let us see how we can modify structure using pointers. Now, key points to remember when using structures and pointers is that if we want to modify the original structure, we need to pass a pointer to that structure instead of a copy. This allows a function to access and change the original data of a structure. Okay, and in order to do that, since pointers are frequently used with structures, rather than using the dereferencing operator, okay, what we will do here is that we will basically use the arrow operator to access the member of a structure using a pointer. We will see this with the help of an example. Okay, so what I will do here is that, let's say I define a function that will update, okay, that will update the value of a particular student. So let's call this function void update, and to this function I will pass a pointer to the structure. Okay, a pointer to the structure. So this is known as a structure pointer. Sorry, just a small mistake here. Okay, so here what I will do is, here what we will do is, we will pass the student structure, okay, by reference. That is, we'll pass a pointer to the structure. And then what I will do is, in order to access the members of that particular structure. Here I cannot use the dot operator. The dot operator will not work because I will have to dereference, okay, that particular structure, that particular pointer in order to access its members. So rather than using the dereferencing operator, what I will do is I will use the arrow operator here. So using the arrow operator and pointer, I can access any member of that particular structure. Okay. So let's say I want to increment the age of the student by 1. And let's say I want to increment the grade also of the student. Let's say I want to increment it by 5. Now here what I will do is I will print before and after. So I will update, I will call the update function, and inside this update function, I will pass a pointer to that structure. In simple terms, I will pass the address of that structure to this function. So using the AND operator or the address of operator, I will pass the address, that is a pointer to the structure, okay, to the function. Similarly, I will update the data of the second student by passing a pointer or the address of the student to structure, okay. And then let's call these functions again, the display info, and see if the changes take place or not. So let's go ahead, compile and run this program. So as you can see, the age of Alice was 20. After updating, it became 21. The age of John is 21. After updating, it became 22. Similarly, we can see the same thing with the grade of each student. Okay. So this is how, using pointers, we can modify the original structure. So just a quick revision. In this example, what did we do is we pass student 1, that is the address of student 1, by using the AND operator, which gives this function, that is the update function, direct access to the structure. And inside the structure, we use the arrow operator to access and modify the age and grade. And as you can see, the values were updated successfully. Okay. Now a key points to take away from this video is that structures allow us to group variables of different types under a single name. Second point to remember is that to access the members of a structure, we should use the dot operator. Third point to remember is that when we can pass structures to functions either by value or by using a pointer. Okay. And the last thing you need to remember is that passing by pointer lets us modify the original structure, and it uses the arrow operator, not the dot operator, to access the members of a structure. Now using these techniques, we can perform a lot of complex operations on data in C. Okay, that's all for today. And I hope you learned and took away a lot from this video. Thanks for tuning in. And if this video really helped you, please like and subscribe for more C programming content. See you next time.